evening and welcome to Inside Government for the spring 2018 semester here at Cayuga Community College. This is a show that is broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon, Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as the college's radio station 89.1. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. On Tuesday, May 15th, voters across the state of New York get to go to the polls, not only to vote for members of their local school boards, but also to vote on their budgets. For New Yorkers, the 2018-2019 budgets they will be voting on will have a 2% mandated tax cap imposed on their budgets, but in some cases that may not exactly be 2%. We'll talk about that in a moment. They've also received an increase in aid from Albany, but some districts may not have received as much as they thought. Voters in the Auburn district will be able to chime in on whether they want to pass a $76.4 million budget that will be presented this week to the Auburn School Board that tries to close a multi-million-dollar gap between revenues and expenses. The budget is up about 1.5% from last year and makes cuts of 28 positions. On the average, a $100,000 home, if you don't have a STAR exemption, the tax increase will be about $30. And if you have an enhanced STAR program, it will be about $7. To explain the budget and all that goes into it, we have with us, as usual, Auburn Superintendent of Schools Jeff PIROZZOLO and Budget Manager Lisa Green. Welcome both.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
and you gave such a great opening.
You're
I don't
done?
know if we have anything to speak about.
We have a couple things of it. So before getting into budget, last night you sent out a general alert, as you do, and you utilize this on a much more regular basis than maybe your predecessors, to alert families that there would change in school hours on Friday. What are you doing and why?
Well, multiple reasons. One is we didn't use up, believe it or not, we didn't use all our snow days.
And did you walk into the snowstorm?
Well, I drove over here in sort of a whiteout, but you know, that wasn't the main reason. The main reason we're doing it is because we're going to do a school safety assembly for our staff members. You know,
is this a follow-up to Parkland?
It's a follow-up, and you know, I want our community and I want our staff members to know that we continue looking at safety every single day, and we've done a lot of upgrades since 2007 that I don't even know if our staff is aware of. Plus, we're going to do some training with the Auburn Police Department. Sergeant Greg Dan is going to be doing a training piece.
So your SROs are going to be doing part of this. Who else is doing training?
I met with Officer Major and Sergeant Dan, but I would imagine Officer.
So it's your police?
The Auburn Police Department, yes. And
what time will schools close?
Students,
all staff will be on.
Right, and the students, secondary students will be getting out at 11 o'clock, so that's Auburn Junior High School and the high school, and all of our elementary students will be released at noon. Okay,
and could you do this based on that you just had that extra day that you didn't have to use a snow day?
Well, we
couldn't have pre-planned this.
No, it sort of worked out the way it did, and you know, again, trying to get a conference day with our staff is very difficult to do, but I think school safety trumps everything that we do, because it's our #1 priority, making sure our children and staff are safe every day. So it just seemed like a perfect time to do it.
So you're going to present a budget tomorrow night to the Board of Education. So they have not approved a budget right now.
Right.
What's in it?
It's pretty much a status quo budget. We're maintaining all of our educational programs. We are reducing some staff, but mostly through attrition.
So 76.4 million. It's up about 1.5. Is that because of labor agreements and just the cost of doing operations? You're not expanding any new programs, right?
No, it's all inflationary.
Employee benefits alone are up about 1.6 million.
Okay.
So if you do the math right there, if employee benefits are up 1.6 million, we received about an additional $600,000 in foundation aid, and a 1% tax levy for the school district is a little bit under $300,000. So if we go up a 1.58%, you know, you're talking about $450,000. Our health increase is more than the revenue that we're bringing in for next year.
So when you were here, I think it was back in February, you thought that you had about a $2 million plus gap. Am I correct at that time? So how'd you close it?
It was closer to 4.
Closer to 4, okay. So how did you close it?
again, we're using $1.3 million in reserves. We've been looking at some ways to save money, such as leasing trucks and, of course, cutting equipment lines. But unfortunately, it comes down to layoffs and actually, it's more cutting positions. We did do an incentive this year for retirees.
So it's in two parts. There are reductions by way of people who have retired, and you're not replacing them, correct?
Correct.
And then there are some layoffs. So it's a combination of the two?
Correct.
How many in total are you reducing overall? Forget how many real...
28.
28 positions.
28 positions.
And what areas are they? Are they across the board?
They are. You know, we've got some elementary positions that we're cutting. We have some elementary special ed positions we're cutting. We're cutting a social studies position, a teaching assistant position.
But the vast majority are teacher aides, am I correct?
And we're going to be cutting 15 teacher aide positions as well.
Does that mean that will result in 15 people who currently are employed by the district not being with you in September, or do you get some attrition?
Some will be late. There will be retirements.
Yeah. Okay.
Between now and then, yes.
Okay. Yeah. I want to stop there on the budget because one of the factors that came in before all of this was Cayuga Centers, better known as the Cayuga Home for Children. 2 months ago when you came in here and gave the district update, we talked about the decision. Where is the closure? Is the school closed at this stage?
We are now. We continue to tutor a few students that were left over there, that have moved out recently. Okay. So all of our staff now is back working full-time with us that we were able to maintain.
So that staff has been merged into your current staff. So does that mean that nobody immediately was laid off because of contractual issues?
We with openings that we had a principal position opening. We had some
Ron Gorney over at Herman Avenue.
Correct, and we did have some teaching positions that people slid into. But what we did is we were sort of creative. We brought all of our teachers back and we looked at where all of our long-term subs were. Okay. And we integrated them into those positions until the end of the year. And
how many long-term subs did you have to
there was, I believe there was 4 or 5.
4 or 5. And there was also an issue of about $400,000 deficit from Cayuga Home to the district, as I understand it.
Correct.
Has that been recovered?
It'll be through our general funds. It'll be recovered.
No, it has not been recovered.
We'll never recover it.
So Cayuga Home is not on the hook for that?
No.
No.
Should they be?
I would have liked to have thought so, but again, the contract reads what the contract reads, and so we never recovered that from Cayuga Centers. We will have to cover it ourselves.
So I ask all that because I'm assuming that just made the whole budgeting process harder.
Well, it did. Not only the numbers, but the people as well. You know, we talk every year, and the hardest part about doing the budget for Lisa and I are our employees, you know, cutting positions and cutting people. We were fortunate enough this year, though, to have 16 or 17 teacher retirees, so we could do through a lot of them through attrition.
And this was an incentive that people took advantage of?
They did.
And how much will that cost the district?
It's about $135,000.
And of those 16 or 17, some of those positions though do get replaced. Those just by lower paid employees.
Correct.
Am I correct? Because you won't be, if you need a music teacher at Casey Park, you still need whether somebody, I don't know if that's
but the breakage between what the experienced teacher is going out and what a new teacher comes in, the district still makes money on that as well.
So on the state aid front, you have an increase of how much?
$600,000.
In foundation aid.
In foundation aid. And that is not what you expected nor what you needed. Am I correct on that?
No, not at all.
So what did you expect? Forget that they would change the formula in a miracle of fairness, do the right thing.
Again, we've come to realize that. Not that we're not going to stop fighting for it, but fixing and fully founding the foundation aid, I don't know how much more we can do about that.
Did you expect that you'd get more than $600,000 though?
At least $1 million.
So what happened? Is it just?
I think the state, you know, they said from the beginning that they were deficit situation. They had a gap to close, and we were told
So
by
you would have
legislators.
expected that the state legislature would have put more money overall, forget just
Yes.
or Auburn schools.
Right,
We were
yes.
talking about overall, you would have
correct.
expected.
We were anticipating that the legislature
election
would
year.
Especially
Yeah.
in election year,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. So in foundation age, just real quickly, I know we go through this every single time, so you have an answer. What is foundation aid for people who don't know?
Foundation aid is the basic formula aid that every school district receives. It's an amount per student, so it's based on your enrollment, but there are a lot of factors that go into it. But it's the main operating aid that districts receive for their students, and it's based on poverty levels in the district.
So what occurred a couple years ago, and I think this is most likely now 4 years ago, roughly, that was a one-time only. They did not fix the formula.
That was more gap elimination.
Okay.
We received our money really at a quicker rate.
This is what
to
you
moving
did the
to
bus
a high
trips
needs.
too.
Yes.
Yeah, and again, you know, just so everyone knows, Auburn is we're very responsible when it comes to spending. We spend about $17,500 per pupil spending. The state average is over $23,000. We're in the bottom 5% of pupil spending in the state.
And from a poverty, you sent me a fact sheet, and from a poverty perspective, it looks like of the 4,100 students you have enrolled, about 48% of them are directly certified for free or reduced meals, which means that's
Right.
correlated to poverty. Am I correct?
Correct.
Correct.
So you're a poorer district.
Correct.
This year, and I know I ask you this every year, if you had to calculate what you think you've lost since they haven't corrected this, and I know there's at least 3 lawsuits out there. That's most likely why Cynthia Nixon, well, not most likely, it's one of the reasons Cynthia Nixon is running against the governor. It's, they're all talking about the aid formulas. How much do you think?
Even just if they fully funded the formula, even without correcting it, just funding it 100% at the way it is right now, we would receive $5 to $6 million more per year.
Per year. So
year.
over the last 5 years, you've lost 20 million.
Oh,
At least.
Oh yeah, at least.
And,
at least.
and in doing that, one piece of the budget is proposed, and I don't know and I think we talked about this when you were last time it was proposed, was there was going to be some additional aid that they were going to base on
Small
corrected
city.
for it. And did that occur?
Well, we're talking about the IWI. You and I had spoken about eliminating the income wealth index. And actually, you're talking about all the lawsuits out there. The Masto case, which is the big one out
Right.
there for small city school districts, actually went to the Court of Appeals, and it ruled in favor of small city school districts. So we actually presented 4 bills to be passed for small city school districts, and one of those bills was actually an extra $400 per student for small city school districts, as well as the elimination of the IWI floor. The bills were passed by the Assembly, but not by the
Yeah, we should say these are bills to enact legislation, not a bill. We sent you a bill.
Correct. Yes.
Your
and
governor, pay this
yes,
check at your
correct.
table before you get up
Correct.
and leave.
And so hopefully at the end of this month, I'm going to be going back to Albany, and we're going to look at presenting these bills again to the legislators.
So the budget you're presenting is under the tax cap. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
Tax cap is never exactly 2% because they factor in a lot of different pieces. What is the tax cap right now for
The tax
Auburn?
cap for Auburn is 1.58%.
And is that what you're going?
Yes.
So you only need 50% of
Plus one.
voters. There's not a supermajority. Though last year you did need a supermajority.
No.
No.
Oh, you did not.
No, 3.98 was our 2%
What
tax
was your
cap
2?
last
Okay.
year.
And did you think of it all going over this year?
No.
You just
Not
don't think
really.
it's worth the risk?
We knew last year was
An anomaly?
It
yes.
was.
Okay.
And it alternates usually, and Lisa brings this up, that 2% tax cap seems to one year be well over 2% and then the next year be under 2%. And it's been fluctuating that way for us for the past how many
Yeah,
years?
since it's been in place,
Yeah.
6 years. The last 5 years, our average, if you average the whole 5 years, is 1.77%.
Okay. So in doing all this and your reductions in staff, so are you losing more staff because of Cayuga Centers, or because of your budget gap?
We're actually losing more because of Cayuga Centers than we are.
We're losing
well,
more teaching positions.
teaching
Okay.
positions. So yeah, we are definitely losing more teaching positions because of
And
that.
in that particular case, have the teachers who are going to lose their jobs if this budget passes, have they been given their notice? Because I know you have some legal requirements.
Yeah, actually, Jeff Ebner and myself, we met with all the teachers and the teacher aides last Monday and Tuesday. We had a budget workshop on Tuesday evening of last week, and Jeff and I met with all of the employees that this would have an effect on.
And you've been
that.
doing this, I think the last time you were on, you were running a little bit late because you had to inform the teachers because of the Cayuga Centers.
Correct.
So is this something you're just, it's not the district's fault, but you got to keep everybody up to speed?
We have to, and again, you know, that it's the worst part of the job is telling someone that we can't, you know, meet the contractual needs and we have to cut positions.
So is this going to change the size of classes?
You know,
And I'm talking globally. I'm not forget Cayuga Centers for now. I'm
well,
just talking overall.
and again, just looking at it and preparing for the budget, we've noticed that with the cutting of the 5 elementary classrooms, our class sizes will go up a little bit, but will still be well. Some of them are below the target set by the board. Our target is for kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, class sizes of 20 to 25, and actually 3rd grade all the way through 12th grade is 25 to 30. We will not be exceeding that target.
And with your tax increase, how much will you generate in new tax revenue?
About $485,000 with a 1.58%.
And do you have to utilize some fund balance?
We're using $1.3 million in reserves.
And what is that comparable to last year? Is that
Last year we used about $1.6 million.
so a little
but
less?
we have a little less available to use.
So how much will you have on hand next year?
I believe that will leave us with about $3.5 million.
Okay, so I'm not a math whiz,
Under the
but I keep
4%.
knowing that if you keep using 1.3, and I'm not asking you to defend this, I'm just saying at some point the money runs out. It's just the reverse of, you know, the old compound interest is great,
Correct.
reductions are not. How long can you keep doing? So what is next year? I mean, I'm assuming you're already looking at 1920. What's next year look like?
It already
Same?
looks like a $4 million deficit
And have
without
you,
using any reserves.
and what about, all right, so if you use 1.6 again, now you're going to be down to about 2.
Yep.
And
So-
I'm assuming that's beyond what the state comptroller likes you to be as a rainy day fund. Am I correct on
Right.
that? What? Okay, so what's
Well,
it
they
look?
worry more about being over than they do
Right.
under, of course.
So what's it look like 3, 4, and 5 years? Are you doing projections out there?
The following year looks like an $8 million deficit. With
So that's
just
a time for another
maintaining the
show.
status quo.
How do you even? Are you just not getting your heads around that at this stage? You got to get through right now.
Yeah, we got to get through 1 year at a time, but again,
But we're looking at things. We're looking at our benefit plans and
But
opportunities.
But an 8 out of a $76 million budget is 10%.
Yeah.
That is, Peter Tortorisi was on here as chairman of the legislature about 10 years ago, and he said, you know, at some point we made all the easy cuts. Now we're at bone.
yeah, right.
I mean,
We
that's
are.
what we are, and we've been there for a few years.
So is there anything new in the budget that you weren't doing last year, but you said we have to implement it now?
we are implementing the technology instruction. at
Yeah,
the
we are.
elementary.
So
We
technology, is that because of the bond issue of a couple years ago?
No.
Or is
no.
this new
No,
money?
that's
Technology
much-
instruction.
Yeah,
in
the
the
curriculum at the elementary. Not only that, but we've also got to teach mental health. There's new
state
regulations, state mandates that they're having us do, and
When you say teach mental health, that's a class you have
it's,
to,
it's going to be a curriculum piece that we've got to
and you're not
It'll
getting
be-
any extra money for that, I'm
no
assuming?
no extra money, and again, just adds more on our teachers' plate as well.
Are you reducing anything, I understand staff, but are you getting rid of any programs? Because I know you said that you're going to keep some programs that the 6 instructional teams, the project lead in the way, at the high school, the AP and Cayuga Advantage courses, the high school. Is there anything you had to cut out programmatically?
We did not cut any programs.
ask this because it occasionally comes up. I'm assuming Holland Stadium has no impact on this budget other than regular maintenance?
No, actually, it saves us money.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why.
Explain that to me.
I don't have people there on the weekends having to line the field.
Oh, okay.
And that's where we used to get crushed at Holland Stadium, was the overtime, especially when the weather's the way it is. We could line the field on Saturday, and this year it just rains and completely washes it out. Actually, we probably wouldn't have even been on Holland Stadium. So we've gotten all of our lacrosse games in because of the turf.
So this is totally out of left field question. I know one school district had a problem a couple weeks ago where some gals and guys, or maybe one or the other, got on and cleared snow. How do you protect? Because that's not a secure.
We make it as secure as we
Okay.
can, so you can't drive equipment in there. We have it all gated, so you
Okay.
can't bring in equipment.
Was the other place not gated?
Apparently not, the way they
Okay.
got stuff in there.
Do you ever worry about that? Is that just?
Oh yeah, that we have 24-hour surveillance
Oh, you
with
do?
our
Okay.
cameras. That's why if you
And
go
somebody's
by,
watching them.
well, if you go by Holland Stadium, that's why the safety lights are on.
So I go by every day because I'm here on campus, and I go through the back parking lot, and it looks like Holland Stadium is being used until 9 o'clock some nights.
It is. It is. We even have baseball and softball practicing there. We can't get them out on their fields.
That's the reason why all these kids have bats in their
Yes,
book bags,
yes,
which
that's
I will
why.
tell you threw me off originally because I thought, well, this is the 1982 movie The Warrior.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not gang related. It's baseball related.
So public hearing is when?
May 8th,
But they will approve the budget when?
tomorrow night.
So it's asked backwards, excuse me,
Yeah,
as we normally say.
Yeah.
Have you had people be coming to your board meetings to talk about what they see as cuts, or do you think until they see what you unveil tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think they're waiting to see.
We
what
haven't had people coming.
And again, you know, it's not a big increase. The cuts and the layoffs, thank God for some retirements. You know, that's bittersweet because we're losing our experienced teachers, which is very difficult, but it yet allows us not to have to cut a lot of people's positions. So it is bittersweet, but we don't have as many layoffs as we have in the past.
So in your fact sheet, you did talk about contingency. What happens if the budget does not pass by 50% plus one vote?
If it doesn't pass on May 15th, then the board will decide whether they want to put up the same budget again for another vote, or make some modifications to it and put it up for another vote, or they could decide to go right to contingency.
And what happens if you go to contingency?
Then we have to make some reductions in the budget. We're not allowed to have any equipment purchases, and most importantly, we're not allowed to increase our tax levy at all. We can't exceed last year's tax levy.
So you'd be going back between the 1 point...
the 485,000,
Okay.
we would have to find reductions.
Are there any other matters, by the way, on the ballot?
Yes.
Okay, what
We
are
have
they?
2 other propositions.
Okay.
We have a capital turf. I'll talk about the first one because
Okay.
this is one thing that we talked about with the community. We have a turf capital
Reserve.
And what that is so that we can put money into that reserve every year, so that when the turf needs to be replaced, it will be a no impact cost
So
to
is
our
this something
taxpayers.
you're proposing for the first time? You may have talked about it before, but voters have to approve it.
Correct.
Yes.
We spoke about it when we were going out for the turf vote, that I told the voters
And will that have an impact on the budget?
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
So how much is that for, or what are you asking voters for? Just to approve it, and then you'll figure out funding?
Correct.
We
Just
had,
get
in
it
the
created.
language of the proposition, we had to set a maximum amount and a term limit, so it's a 15-year reserve fund with a maximum amount of $1 million.
Okay.
And we would fund that with
How much did this, just the turf alone cost?
That was a
I do it this way because that's where it's located.
2.58 million,
2.5, okay.
somewhere around there, 2.5 million.
the whole project was 2.8.
Yeah,
Okay.
2.8.
But the
The turf
turf one.
replacement is about $1 million.
Okay. The other ballot proposition?
That is a regular capital reserve fund that we would like to have set up. We just finished our final phase of our last capital project, and we already know we have many issues that need to be addressed. We are in dire need of
So does this
improvements to our
budget
building.
this year not include much maintenance or upgrade?
None.
Okay.
None. And you know, Guy, that's one of the biggest pieces is we've always had a capital project going on in this district for the last 10 years. So if a roof blew off or a boiler went down, we could always go to the capital project and get aid back on that. Right now we don't have that, so it's going to cost us $1 on the dollar.
So I want to talk about something that people may not reflect on. I was disappointed on your fact sheet that it's at the very end because I thought it was interesting. Because we all pay attention to dollars.
We can change our fact sheet.
Well, I would say, so your graduation rate is, this is why, because I think that was just a spectacular number. Your graduation rate is now what?
It's almost 85%.
You were in 2007, 68%. So how'd you get a jump of 16+%?
And again, I think it's great teaching. It's been great leadership. I think that for children to learn, they've got to be engaged, and we've got to create opportunities for kids. I think that Mr. Morgan, one of the big things that he did when he first
principal at the high school.
Auburn High School.
Okay.
One of the big things that he did was he created a 9-period schedule versus an 8-period, which gave kids 4 more opportunities to earn credits throughout their high school career.
So they're not having that dream we all have as adults that we forgot to take one course.
Yeah, right, exactly.
We didn't get to walk across the stage. Okay.
You know, and I think the K through 12, how we infused everything, that graduation just as in high school, starts at kindergarten. And I think...
And the reason I say, you put it on there because I think it's an important fact, but I thought that was just a stellar... So while you've still got financial issues, you're increasing graduation rates.
Correct.
Okay. The other number that I thought was interesting was Auburn's attendance rate, and that is what?
94.
94%, which is huge because, like I said, if kids aren't in school, they can't learn and they can't graduate. So we've spent a lot of money and a lot of time and effort to increase our attendance
Because
rate.
when I get emails from you, there's a little logo on there, I think it says be present.
Every student
present.
Present. How does this compare to other districts our size?
Other districts our size, I would imagine they've got about a 10% dropout rate as well.
Okay.
You know, especially when you compare.
I'm not talking about I'm talking about attendance.
Oh, attendance. Oh, I would say that we're starting to go past those districts.
So real quickly, a minute and a half, so the control room knows this. How many members of the school board are up this year?
3.
Who are they?
Mike McCall, Kathy Rhodes, and Sam Jean Greco.
And I believe Mr. Jean Greco has submitted his petitions, as maybe Andy Robley, who's a former board member, has. Have other people taken out petitions?
Yes, I think there was 2 other petitions picked up.
Any idea how many people will be running this year? We just like to know in the control room. I know you'd like to know.
Again, from what our numbers look like, could be anywhere up to 6.
But candidates can pick up petitions and they can still drop them off until
May 25th. Or April 25th.
April 25th at 5 p.m.
That, yeah.
Because while school's on break next week, the district office is open, people
Correct.
can drive. Polls are open from when?
From 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
On May 15th.
Tuesday, May 15th.
But there is a change in location because of...
Same as last year, West Middle School now goes to Seward.
Okay.
So anybody that was registered to go to West, they all go to Seward Elementary School.
All right. We want to thank both Superintendent of Schools Jeff PIROZZOLO and Lisa Green for giving us an update on the budget. We appreciate this every year to tell us what's going on, and we encourage people to pay attention to not only the budget votes that the board will take, but the public hearing, which is again
May 8th,
May 8th,
7
so
o'clock.
a week before the vote.
Yes.
And then we do encourage people to go to the polls, whether it's this school budget or any school budget on May 15th. We'll be back in just a moment with members of the Wasco Lake Watershed Association on Beyond the Front Page. Next Tuesday, we have 2 back-to-back Inside Government shows. The first will be a budget update by City Manager Jeff Dygert on the 2018-2019 city budget he is presenting to the Auburn City Council that has to be approved by July 1st. That will be followed by a discussion with Cayuga County Legislative Chairman Pat Mahunick, as well as Cayuga County Administrator Justin Woods on the government consolidation that the governor has required in previous budgets. This will be in conjunction with a recently released report from the Center for Government Research out of Rochester. We'll finish our season, as we just mentioned, with our annual Auburn Large School District Forum with Citizen Executive Editor Jeremy Boyer asking the questions. I'll moderate as usual on Tuesday, May 1st. There are 3 seats up this year. So far, we know that one challenger and former school board member Andy Robley has agreed to appear, and we look forward to hearing from the other candidates as they file their petitions with the district. Before we go, though, you can let us know if you have any questions for next week's guests. You can contact us at Inside Government, 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York, 13021, or at cozguytho@aol.com. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cayuga Community College. We want to thank you for watching. We hope you have a good night. Stick around for the Beyond the Front Page on the lake, and have a great tomorrow.